Hello, welcome. It's always nice to see you. I always look forward to our sessions. So, how's this week been treating you so far? Okay. Well, we're gonna unpack all of that. Why don't you just settle in, decompress. Why don't, before we get started and dive into all of this, let's just settle into your seat, take a couple nice, slow, deep breaths, just get yourself centered in the moment. I know the process of just getting here, just the driving and the rushing and all of that can be a little bit nerve-wracking to our nervous system. So let's just take a moment to just let's just decompress a little bit before we dive into this. All right, don't you take one more nice slow inhale. Just slowly breathe air in through your nose. Just hold it for a minute. And now exhale all of that out of you. Completely empty the air out of you. All right, great job. All right, so now that we're centered, you're feeling centered? Okay. Why don't we start off with what you were saying? So, not a great week so far. And why? Can you pinpoint why exactly the week's feeling a little less than stellar? That what you're saying to me, that makes a lot of sense on so many different levels, not just based on what you're going through right now in your life, but are you familiar with the phrase, as above, so below? All right, it's a ton to unpack, and we could spend the entire session today just trying to decode what that means. But I kind of want to talk a little bit about how it applies directly to what you're saying right now. So in terms of what I'm hearing you say is, this time of year, it can be a little bit challenging, and that's incredibly normal. We're moving away from the warmth of the summer, and we're moving into this time of life, this cycle where it's getting darker, it's getting colder, we're having to stay indoors more. The holidays in and of themselves can bring up a lot of challenging emotions. And just as though the seasons all have their very own distinct parts to them. There's a definite mood to summer. There's a definite mood to spring, and the things and the emotions and the activities that those seasons bring forth. I want you to recognize that, now we're moving into what is generally considered not as fun of a season. Obviously there's some people that like winter, but generally speaking, the consensus is that this time of year, this hibernation, this turning inward, this more reflective season can be challenging for a lot of us, myself included. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I want to talk a little bit about how there are different phases of life, and they each have their own role. And we kind of just have to be aware of them, be aware of the passage of moving through one in order to get to the springs, in order to get to the summers, and to just see it as a big part the whole, It's all part of this, cycle that we have to move through continuously. And as much as, a lot of us would just love to skip over the winters, we'd like to skip over the hardships. We'd love to live in that eternal spring, that eternal summer, even that eternal fall. We have to pass through the winter in order to get to those easier times to be happy in. I know you like sports, so I'm going to kind of use like a sports metaphor for you. So let's think about just tennis, for example. You can use any sport. If you're about to play a game of tennis, before anything else, what's the first thing that you're going to need in order to play a game? Whether it's actually tennis, football, baseball, whatever it is. What do you need to play a game? You do, but what I'm looking for is you need an opponent. See what I'm saying? You need someone to challenge you. And now, what I really want to work on in this session, because it's really important, I want you to reframe the way you are looking at your opponent, okay? Because you're looking at your opponent and you're only seeing the negativity. And that's there, there's definitely, I'm not ignoring that. There's some hardship involved. However, once we are able to reframe the way you look at your opponent, it's going to completely change the way you're playing the game. All right, so let's just delve a little bit more into this analogy. What if we reframe that opponent? And we all have different opponents. What if we reframe that as the thing that is actually sharpening our skills and actually drawing out the best version of ourselves? So think about this. If you were to play a sport, would you want to always play against someone who was far below your skill level, who did not challenge you, who did not allow you to, make mistakes and learn from them? Or would you want to play against someone who challenged you, that forced you to actually, over time, get better? Think about it say whatever your favorite team is. For the entire season, that team was going to play like a high school level team. And every game they just slaughtered the high school team. Maybe that'd be amusing at first. You'd be like, this is fun. But at a certain point, not only would it get boring, you would lose interest, the players would lose interest, they would actually start losing their own skill set. Do you see what I'm saying? We need the challenge. We need the challenge to bring out the best versions of ourselves, to advance as a person. If emotions were always positive, if the only emotions that ever came into your orbit were joy and peace and calm, those were the only things that floated into your world, you would stay completely stagnant. You would have no reason to move out of that space. You see what I'm saying? You need the discomfort of anxiety. You need the discomfort of depression. You need the discomfort of a winter, of a challenge, in order to grow, in order to appreciate and enjoy the fullness of the summer that you earned. You like, see sort of where I'm going with this? Like, again, to use like a sports analogy, like, what if you were the type of fan that did not watch the entire season? You weren't the fan that tuned in for every single baseball game of the entire season. And then just at the very end, the World Series, like you're painting your face and you're showing up. Like, those fans didn't earn it. And because they didn't earn it, the reward of seeing your team, win the Super Bowl or win the World Series, they're not going to experience nearly the same level of joy as the fan who was with the team through the thick and the thin, through the muck and the mire. That's a completely different reward than the fan that was like going on that journey the entire way. So you really earn the payoff. And the payoff is going to depend upon how you are when you're in the winter phase, when you're in the introspective, becoming phase. That whole analogy kind of making sense? Like, why don't you tell me sort of like your thoughts on this? I want to hear how this is landing with you. So when I say to you that what you're feeling right now, that feeling that you were just talking about, that you have, it doesn't feel good. I want you to picture that feeling as more than a feeling. Picture it as an opponent that you're stepping into the ring with. And what do you think, if you just had to guess, what do you think that feeling, that emotion, that state of mind that you're in, what do you think that feeling is guiding you towards? Like, in other words, what do you think is the root cause of this? Because these things, these feelings, they're not arising for no rhyme or reason. They're not there just to irritate you, just to cause you not to enjoy life. It's actually quite the opposite. They're here to show you a part of yourself, an unexamined part of yourself, something that's deep down in the darkness of yourself, not something that's here on the surface that you're walking around showing to the world, but the part of you that's deep down in there that maybe you don't look at. It's trying to bring it up to the surface for you. It's trying to show you, like, hey, there's this thing in here that you need to deal with, that you need to let go of, that you've been holding on for a little too long. And it's ready for you to look at it. What do you think that is? And take your time with that. A lot of times it's something that we haven't thought about for a really, really, really long time. It could be a wound that we first got as a child when we were really young. Maybe it was a feeling of not feeling safe, or a feeling of being rejected, not feeling good enough. And then from that feeling of being a child and not knowing what to do with that emotion, not having the, all the capabilities that we have now as an adult, we developed this armor to protect ourselves. And for a while, that armor, it felt good. It did protect you. It did help you to feel safe, to feel a little bit more in control. It's the thing with armor. If it didn't serve any purpose, it'd be really easy just to take it off and cast it away. But it does serve a purpose. It served the purpose of protecting the parts of you that were wounded. However, the thing about armor is it's also preventing things from getting in, and it's also preventing growth. It's this wall. Nothing's coming in, nothing's going out. And I know based on our conversations that you have grown so much as a person, from when I first met you. I've seen you doing so much work on yourself. I've seen you transforming so much. You've come such a far way from who you used to be. But I think there's still this part of you that is a little bit afraid to completely take off that armor that you wore for so long that protected you, even though now it actually feels kind of heavy and it feels like a little bit more of a prison and a cage than a protector. And I think that, you're in a place now where you're ready to start examining these defenses that you have, these habits that you have that you realize, they don't serve you anymore. They're just habits. They're just, patterns of behavior that used to serve a purpose, that used to protect you. But you've outgrown them. And that's just the normal, cycle of life. You're in a place right now where the things that used to serve you, they don't serve you anymore because you've grown too big for them, and you're starting to feel the pressure and the constraint of living within that suit of armor that you've been wearing for so long. And I just want you to know that I think that you are in a place now where you can start to take some of that armor off. Start to let the world back in. Start to realize that you don't have to fight against everything. That's so exhausting. It's so exhausting to think that everything is against you and you have to control every aspect of life, and there's all these different components that you're juggling, and that if you stop juggling for 1 second, then everything's gonna fall apart. That's so emotionally draining, and it's so tiring, and I don't want that for you. I would love nothing more for you than for you to start to develop this sense of trust in not only yourself and your own, capacity and your own capabilities, but in life in general, and in the universe itself, that it's not against you. And if there's one thing that you can take away from this, and one lesson that I really want you just to start incorporating into your daily life, is trusting the process, trusting the cycle, trusting the evolution, trusting that when things start to feel bad, It's because it's preparing you to feel good. And we can't skip that bad part in order to get to the feel good part. We can't just close our eyes and resist the entire way through it. We're not going to get back to that, to that Super Bowl win. We're not going to get to that World Series win if we don't show up as our best with awareness, to every single game of the season. You can't just show up at the end and accept the trophy. It's not how it works. I would say as great as that is, but it's not. Like I said, it's not that great just to get the trophy and you didn't struggle the entire season to earn that trophy. That would mean absolutely nothing if you just woke up one morning and they're like, hey, here's the trophy. You're like, okay. Wouldn't mean anything to you. But if you fought with your blood, sweat, and tears for that trophy, then the trophy, that's just a symbol for what you internally actually transformed into. The trophy is not what you're actually fighting to claim. What you're fighting to claim is the experience that changed you enough to receive that trophy. And it's all these processes that we go through, it's all internal alchemy. Do you know what alchemy is? It's just sort of the process of changing metals. There was these ancient mystics that were always sort of thinking about, okay, if we could turn metals into gold, and it's a sort of the same thing of doing that internally, of turning the negative into something beautiful. It's, just sort of the whole reaping what we sow metaphor, the seeds that you're planting into your garden. You have to tend to them. You have to water them. You have to be there through the entire process of them becoming in order to enjoy the fruits of your labors. It's kind of what that whole thing means. You gotta do the work. There's just, there's no way around it. And at a certain point, when you reframe entirely the way you look at depression, the way you look at anxiety, the way you look at those icky feelings that are going to come up, and they're always going to come up. There's never going to be a point when the work is done, until you die. There's never going to be a point where, while you're alive, while you're living, that there's not more work that needs to be done. And so if you reframe the way you look at the yuckiness that's going to come up from time to time, and you look at dead in the eye as an opponent that, I don't know if you want to go so far as to say you're excited to play, but that you're ready for the challenge. The same way a boxer or fighter is going to go into the ring, go into it with the mindset I'm going to give this my best shot, and I know the experience is going to change me for the better regardless, because it's going to strengthen me, it's going to teach me things. And what's always interesting, when I watch sports, and I think it's an important thing to remember, especially when you watch a boxing match, so many times you'll see these men in the ring and they're looking like they're trying to kill each other. And 'cause my dad and my brother would watch boxing a lot, so I saw this a lot growing up. You have these two opponents, they're going at it, seemingly, like literally trying to kill the other one. And then the match is over, and what happens? So many times I would see them like hugging each other, patting each other on the back, and you could tell that when the fight was over, they both were, the winner and the loser. So many times the loser was humble and would tell the other guy, like, oh man, great fight. And, the winner would be gracious as well. And I think that's the way we should go into these experiences. We're going to get knocked on our ass sometimes by depression or anxiety. We're not going to win every round, every fight. But we have to be able to come out of it and just like look it in the eye and be like, good game. You got the best of me that time. Like, you got me that time, but I'm going to get you next time. And have a more like laid back attitude about it. An acceptance of the fact that we don't need to knock out our opponent every single time for it to be a win, because, those fights that you lose, they really do teach you more about yourself than the fights that you win. So when you can go into a battle with a completely different headspace, then suddenly that battle doesn't feel like the world's against you. Now you feel like, oh, the world's trying to make me the best version of myself. Oh, my emotions are trying to make me the best version of myself. These things that are like keep coming up, my body wants to work through and let go of. It doesn't want to hold on to them forever and ever and ever. Those parts that I've tried to bury into the darkness and not look at, they're just growing stronger down there because I'm not tending to them. Think about if we handled physical ailments the same way we handled emotional ailments, like it would look like insanity. Like, think about if you broke your leg or something and you're like, I'm just not going to look at it. If I don't look at it, it's not there. Like, your leg would not heal. You'd end up, if it healed at all, you'd like walk with a cane the rest of your life if you were even able to do that. Like you most likely would never be able to walk again. You can't just ignore what's hurt you. You can't just ignore a wound and think like it's going to heal properly. It's not. Not looking at it does not make it disappear. It makes it not heal properly. So just start having that attitude. When something hurts you, acknowledge it. Don't live in it. Don't be like, oh, I am that hurt. I am that rejection. But acknowledge like that. That's done. And acknowledge the feeling. And then release that. Don't let it just live in you, unchecked. All right, that was kind of a lot to digest. Did that make some sense? I hope. I know I was doing sort of a lot of the talking. Why don't you tell me sort of like your summary of all of this? Like what is your general takeaway? I want to hear sort of. I want to hear your feedback. No, that's perfect. That's exactly what I was hoping that you would say. So, the next time that feeling comes up, do you promise me that you're going to look it like dead in the eye and you're going to say, hey, let's go? All right, awesome. That's all I wanted to accomplish here today, was just knowing that the next time that comes up, you're going to be able to look it in the eye and just say, all right, game on. Let's do this. Okay. Well, I'm very happy that we had this session. I think that you get the general idea, and I'm really excited to see you here next week, because I really want to see how you've like integrated all this into your life for this week. And I'm really curious to hear the stories that you're going to have for me when you come back next week, because I want to see how reframing all these things is going to have an impact on your life, because I know it will. I know it's going to really change you if you start going through life like this. All right, well, again, just remember that you are incredibly strong, that everything that you need is already inside you, that everything that you're looking for, you already possess. Everything you're seeking is inside your own heart. So just let your heart be your guide.